You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick. Welcome to the Still Rocking It podcast, where we'll have news, reviews and interviews with some of our favourite Australian musicians and artists. Today we speak to Nicholas Robert Aitken, 65-year-old Australian tenor saxophonist who is still performing. Not just a saxophonist though, he is a TV personality, radio presenter, film actor, theatre performer. In fact, his bio is so long, he himself says he falls asleep halfway through. Apart from playing with bands Old 55 and Jojo Zep and the Falcons, amongst others, he has also performed with some of the biggest names in the music industry, including Skyhooks, Elvis Costello, Tom Jones, Split Enz, Roy Orbison, Cold Chisel, yay, Dire Straits, The Angels, another one of my favourites, Dragon, and James Rain. Numerous TV appearances include Flying Doctors, The Paul Hogan Show, Blankety Blank, Sale of the Century, Getaway Prisoner, Spicks and Specks. I can't even list them all. And there's a huge list of movie credits also, including Mad Max. Worked out who it is yet? We're going to talk to this legend right after this Old 55 hit, On the Prowl.
On the prowl, you know it ain't so discreet. Prowling with the boys on a Saturday night.
Let me introduce you to one Wilbur Wilde.
Back live.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We were lucky enough to see Wilbur and his old friend Frankie J at the Bridgeway here in Adelaide last weekend. How good was that? We loved it as the audience. I bet you loved it.
Oh, the gig was great for us, Cheryl Lee. Frankie and I had not worked together since the 9th of March 2020, which of course was just before everything hit the fan. We'd been down to Tasmania and back on that day. We flew down in the morning from Melbourne. Frank lives in Merimbula these days, so he sort of commutes. He runs a caravan park there with his wife. It's all still doable. You know, he jumps on a plane to Melbourne. You know, we fly to Tassie. We played the gig. Same with last weekend at the Bridgeway in Paraka. We were knocked out, I'll tell you. We were knocked out by the crowd. You know, we came over at about 5 o'clock and did a sound check, and then we had something to eat. And so we're going back to the motel just to throw our frocks on at about 6:30. People queuing up out the front. We're going, what's going on here? They're queuing up. There's about 200 people waiting to get in. We're thinking, oh, we're going to have a cracker of a night. And we did. It was just mighty.
I was one of the people in that line. It almost went back to Bridge Road. Like the old days when I used to go to the Bridgeway when I was actually allowed to go. You guys put on an awesome show. Looking around, everybody was having an absolute ball.
Frank hadn't done a gig in 13 months and 9 days, right? But I tell you, it was just fantastic. I mean, I've been doing gigs like the band that was over there, Pip Joyce, Freddie Strauchs from Skyhooks and Paul Gadsby, our rhythm section. We've been playing some private parties and a couple of clubs over here. You know, so there's green shoots appearing as far as, you know, gigs for us and other musicians go. But Frank just stepped up, fresh up from a spell. I tell you, we laughed. And look, we've said for a long time, Cheryl Lee, it's just not enough to just do the songs. You have to entertain. And that's what we love doing. And we had so many laughs and everybody was in on them.
It was actually really obvious to us that you guys have been friends for clearly a long time, great mates, and still love what you do. The last time I saw you guys together was on Rock the Boat in 2015 with Barnsey.
Yeah, that's right. You know, those cruises, of course, have been put on hold for a while, but those Rock the Boat cruises were great fun because I was the hardest working guy on the boat. I played with Frankie, and of course, Barnsey, as soon as he saw me, say, hey, you bring your saxophone. No, it was really good fun. Hopefully they'll resume soon too.
That was 6 years ago. Have you discovered the fountain of youth? Because when I saw you on the weekend, you guys haven't aged in 6 years.
You know, I can't speak for Frank. Well, I can a little bit. You know, Frankie's a water baby. Like, he lives in Merimbula and he goes surfing. I asked him about it the other day because he stayed over in Melbourne when we returned to visit his daughter and his grandchildren. I said, what have you been doing? He's, been surfing. He said, yeah, the water's been really warm, and he goes for a paddle and looks after himself. Me, on the other hand, I don't sleep well. I'm a couple of carry-ons overweight. I've got high blood pressure and I drink far too much red wine, but, it's kind of working for me.
Well, you're doing something right. Also, I usually try and pinch a set list after a gig, particularly if I'm doing a review. And I asked Jackham, I said, Jackham, grab me the set list. You guys don't have a set list even.
Jackham did ask me for a set list. I went, no, we don't have one. No.
You just wing it?
Well, look, the first 3 songs are generally Rock and Roll is King. Then we do Diana. And then we might do Come Back Again, or usually Don't Be Cruel, because Frank is just such a great Elvis tribute artist, really, when he wants to be. I mean, and he's a great mimic of many, many things. But his Elvis has been written up in the Hollywood Reporter, actually, from a movie he did called High Tide, something like that, with Judy Davis. And he played an Elvis tribute artist in that. And it got a big write-up in the Hollywood Reporter. So he trots that out every now and then.
Yeah, he has got the moves.
Well, he's a good mover, and as I say, a terrific mimic. And we've been working together for 46 years now, so we've made each other laugh a real lot.
Yeah. You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick. These guys played this song at the Bridgeway. Don't Be Cruel by Elvis. Back with more from Wilbur Wilde after this.
Don't be cruel to who heart is true.
You can just imagine Frankie J. Holden and his Elvis moves when you listen to that song, can't you? We are chatting to Wilbur Wilde. You're more famous than the Queen. You've done everything, man. TV, radio, movies, commercials, live shows, of course, you name it, you've done it.
I get halfway through my bio and
You need a nap.
Yeah, go. No, it's boring, But look, it's been a very interesting tour through the performing arts for me, because Hey Hey It's Saturday ran for 17 years. And kind of as a result of that, you get commercials. I'd already done probably half a dozen feature films by the time I started Hey Hey It's Saturday as an actor, and also played with Old 55 with Frankie, and 4.5 years with Joe Giuseppe and the Falcons. Sort of like, 7 years of my life before Hey Hey It's Saturday was occupied by those 2 great Australian bands, and I'm still really good mates with those guys. And I visited Joe the other day. He lives in a country town outside Melbourne now, and he's got a beautiful garden, and we sat on the deck and had a couple of beers and just sort of checked up on each other that we're okay, and we are. And Frankie was just great to see him the other night. We speak on the phone, but we hadn't seen each other like in the flesh, so to speak, for over 13 months. Same with the other guys in the band too. They hadn't seen Frank, and it was just like a really lovely get together. And look, they're dear musical friends, the people with whom we work. Freddie from Skyhooks on drums. I mean, we go back, there's another 45 years there, when Old 55, probably the second successful band after the Skyhooks that Mushroom Records had. Michael Gudinski signed us in 1975, and, we became mates. We toured with Skyhooks. They went to the States for about 8 months in 1976, and then when they came back in the September, we all jumped on a bus out the front of Mushroom Records in Wellington Street, Windsor, it was those days, and it was a single-decker bus, and we toured the East Coast and, right up to Brisbane, and then came down through the middle and went to Broken Hill and then into Adelaide. We were on the road for about 6 weeks. Day one, I'll tell you, there were rows of seats in the bus, all of which faced forward, except for 2 rows in the middle, which faced each other. I mean, all the hooks were there, and, some road crew and tour managers and the like. And I jumped into a seat which faced the front, but it also faced a couple of rear-facing seats. And Red Simons has plonked himself down opposite me and said, "Why are you sitting there?" And I said, "Well, it struck me as the most social part of the bus, so I'm sitting here." And he said, "Good." And away we went. So Red Simons and I've been mates since that day.
What brought you to the sax?
When I was 10 years old, pretty bad bronchitis, Dr. Jolly in Lux Street, Eltham, right? This is 55 years ago. Said, "Rightio, I want you to do some swimming." I said, yeah, I like swimming. Probably holding mum's hand at the time, right in the surgery. And then he said, "Take your medicine." I said, "I always take my medicine, Dr. Jolly." And then he said, "Maybe play a wind instrument to strengthen my lungs." So my grandparents bought me a clarinet. So I started learning that in 1967 at Ivanhoe Grammar. I started learning from a guy named Alec Doherty, at whose 99th birthday the year before last, I was a surprise guest. And so it turns 101 in June.
Bless him.
Yeah, that's right. No, he's sliding now, but at his 99th, he played saxophone and everything. It was a classic. He's this nuggety little Scotsman with Coke bottle lens glasses, and you can hold him in the palm of your hand. So he started me off. I've let him know how much I appreciated that. And then I just joined the school orchestra and marched in the cadet band and sang in the choir. And in year 11, I was studying all the sciences, and I was going to be a scientist or a doctor. Or thought, nah, not going to do that. I had a high school band with whom I enjoyed performing, and we did a couple of parties, and I thought, this is sort of fun. So I changed back to music and studied that and had quite a formal education in theory and practical, and did well at it, and went to university for about 6 months, then dropped out and ran away and joined the circus.
And the rest is history.
I mean, you mentioned this bio only this morning on ABC Radio Melbourne. Somebody had texted in, they were talking about Mad Max, and somebody had texted in that I was in Mad Max. So they called me. I mean, it was like 7:20 they called me to talk about being in Mad Max. You know, I got a text from the producer. I go, a bit early, love. Anyway, yeah, in the opening scenes of the movie. It sort of came about just because we knew this guy, John Lee, who in Mad Max, the original, was the character who got the saucepan through his throat when they run through the caravan. So, you know, Steve Bisley and Hugh Keys-Byrne, a guy named Stephen Millichamp. In the opening scenes, the actor is looking through the rifle scope at a young couple naked going forward in a field. It's in the first 59 seconds of the movie. And of course, that was me and my then girlfriend, Michelle Johnson. That came about because we were just mates of John Lee, who came over and said, hey, look, you know, this guy, George Miller's looking for a couple of extras just to do, you know, a scene in Mad Max. We said, oh, well, you know, $50 a day. Yeah, sure. You know, so
why not?
Yeah, why not? And it's the same with everything that I've done. When I joined Old 55, they weren't famous. You know, they had a record deal with Mushroom, but they were just starting out. And I went and saw them perform after hearing an ad on what was then 2 Double J. I was up in Sydney. By then I was doing the jazz course at the Sydney Conservatorium. I only lasted another 6 months at that, and then ran away and joined a rock and roll band after that, you know. But you know, I went out to see them and they just looked like fun. Holden was hilarious. And I thought, hey, this is a good band. You know, the harmonies were okay and the guitar player's pretty good, you know. And I thought, yeah, just let's do a few gigs. And of course, it just went nuts. And, you know, we ended up with Take It Greasy and the Platinum album and On the Prowl and Rockin' Christmas and all those hits. And we went on Countdown. And when Frank left the band in early May of 1977, I quit the same day because it just wasn't going to be as much fun without him. And a week later, Joe Camilleri's manager called me and said, Joe wants you to join the Falcons, be at Gary Young's at his house for rehearsal tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. I'd heard the Falcons. They were a terrific band. You know, they'd play to 5,000 people a week and we'd sell 5,000 albums. The reason I joined them was the music was fantastic and Joey was fun. We had a lot of fun. And the same with Hey Hey. I stayed with the Falcons till the end of 81 and then had my own band for a couple of years.
You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick, chatting to Wilbur Wilde. I think we'll have one of those JoJo Zepp and the Falcon songs now. How about All I Wanna Do? Back with Wilbur after this.
All I wanna do, all I wanna do is get in touch with you.
Cheryl Lee, that radio chick. We are chatting to Nicholas Robert Aitken, also known as Australian saxophonist Wilbur Wilde.
1984, Daryl called me, and I've been doing like half a dozen Hey Hey's a year by then, just sitting on panels and stuff. And Daryl called me and said, look, we're going nighttime. You know, do you want to get a band together? And I thought, oh, you know, that sounds like fun. You know, Hey Hey at Saturday, you know, when we went nighttime, it was a huge gamble for those guys. We were 9:30 till midnight for 1984 and then slotted into that regular 6:30 till 8:30 slot the year after. And then, of course, after a couple of years, it went berserk. Became the flagship of the Nine Network, you know, the juggernaut that was Hey Hey at Saturday, rating 45s on a Saturday night. And it's been in the news lately. You know, I did an interview with a Herald Sun. You could say that about any show, you know, and I mean, you look back and you think, okay, it hasn't aged. Well, you know, fast forward, Full Frontal, the Don Lane show, you know, even Graham Kennedy, who was incredible. And Don Lane was great. Paul Hogan's show was, you know, really good fun. Benny Hill, you know, you look back at any of that stuff. So it was different times, and that's fine too. And you know, Kamal's got a point, and Daryl's got a, you know, and Harry Connick had a point. And I remember on the night thinking Daryl handled that really well when Harry expressed his opinion. Daryl, who's not the Minister for Foreign Affairs, right? He's not Alexander Downer.
No, that's right.
He's a comfy television host who can sing and dance and play drums, right? It was like two grown men. Harry Connick, who I love. I reckon he's a fantastic musician, and he had a point. Daryl allowed him to express his opinion, sort of said, oh, well, we didn't mean to cause any, and it was just like two grown adults having a grown-up conversation. But Daryl chose to do that on live television. He could have said, oh, piss off, Harry, or whatever. Not that he would, but he stopped the show for that and then continued on. So anyway, that's all I'll say on the matter.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hey Hey It's Saturday was on Australian television for a massive 28 years. It won 19 Logies. But let's have a song now from Skyhooks, Wilbur's mate, Red Simons, from the band Skyhooks, Horror Movie.
Horror movie right there on my TV. Horror movie right there on my TV.
Now, if the legends of Old 55 had a set list, this would be second on it. Diana.
Please save me, Diana.
You guys have got 3 kids, including a set
Me?
of twins. Have you?
No, I got 5 from 3.
5?
I got-
Oh my God.
yeah, I got 5 from
I've got
3, yeah.
5.
2 of whom I chose wisely not to marry. But we're still mate. I've got a 40-year-old son with 2 grandchildren, 33-year-old daughter who's got a great partner. Her partner, Jed's a beauty, Zibby and Jed. From the woman I did marry and lasted about 20 years with, we've got Howard, who turns 21 in September. And we also have Toby and Elliot, the twins that you
Twin boys,
mentioned, right?
yeah.
Yeah, they're 18 in June, half an hour ago, for heaven's sake. Half an hour ago, I was pushing them around in a
And changing nappies.
No, I left that up to the women folk mainly. But anyway, no, I did a bit of that, of course. I'm a good dad. But Toby and Elliot, non-identical twins, although Toby's my favourite. I keep Elliot for parts.
Yeah.
You never know.
Well,
I'm
I
joking.
tried that, but I've got a boy and a girl, so I haven't got all the spare parts.
Oh, you haven't? No, the parts don't match. Actually, Toby, I'm 6'5", Toby's 6'8". Elliot's about 6'4".
Wow.
Howard, yeah, I know. I went to hug Toby the other day. He's sitting on the couch, right? I went, oh, this was one of those. I said, stand up and give Dad a hug, will you, love? And I stood up and I've sort of got my arms ready to hug like a 6'2" guy. But he's 6'8". I went, oh, where? Oh, gee, there you are.
When
there
did
you are
that
up there. Half an hour ago. He was like 5'6".
I've got 5 too, including twins, and mine are all still at home. Yours are all out and about?
No. The 17-year-old's doing year 12. They're at home with their mum in the old house. Howard is the 20-year-old. He's doing a third-year film and television at Swinburne. So he's moved in with one of his course colleagues. He moved out about 5 days before full lockdown. You guys didn't have this, right? So we went into full lockdown, and I tell you, the way that he coped with that was just incredible. Like we were thinking, oh, it was so sad that Howard's moved out, and he's in lockdown with Gideon, who's, Gideon, his course colleague. But they just got on with it. He moved closer to Swinburne so he could do, easier to get close, but they all went online anyway. He's done incredibly well. He's a really bright and creative filmmaker and a gun editor, and also a beautiful classical guitar player. So.
You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick, chatting to Wilbur Wilde from Old 55. Might have a song now that they open with, one of the first 3 or 4 songs that they usually play. Daddy Cool's hit, Come Back Again.
Come back again. I'm just crazy about you, babe.
Talking about kids, of all things.
Sounds like you've done a pretty good job with your kids. Did any of them follow you into music? So he plays guitar.
Yeah, Howard plays guitar beautifully. He studied that for year 12. Toby, he's learning piano from a dear friend of ours, Mark Fitzgibbon, from the Fitzgibbon family. His dad, Smacker, and his sister Nisha are just stalwarts of the Melbourne jazz scene. Smacker's gone now, but Mark's just a wonderful jazz pianist. And so Toby's learning piano from him and playing great. And singing blues as well. He's got a band with a couple of his mates from school. Elliot, on the other hand, Toby's non-identical twin brother. Elliot was with an organisation called Young Australian Broadway Company, YABC. He's no longer with them because they went into lockdown and stuff, so they no longer did concerts, but they do a concert series every 6 months. They rehearse for 6 months, then do about a dozen concerts at the National Theatre here. So Elliot was a triple threat. So he sings, dances and acts.
Very talented.
Have found a passion for it. Well, look, they are. And I've said to all of them that they have attained a degree of technical proficiency at which at their age I was just nowhere near. I mean, these guys are so far advanced. I'm okay, and I'm there as the consultant for them. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm not an authority figure. I can't, But Toby, I remember about 3 years ago, Toby asked me what chord should go into a particular song he's playing. He's sitting at the piano, and I said, "Oh, look, try an A7." And he put that in, and it sort of worked. He said, "Well, thanks, Dad. You're free to go."
Yeah, sounds about right.
That's right. Can I help it? No, it's okay, Dad. No, off you go. Off you go. You've got other stuff to do. Well, I haven't really. No, you have.
Yeah, I'm good. Oh, bless them. Oh, good luck to all of them. It's great when you see your kids being happy and succeeding, but most importantly, being happy.
Yeah, well, they like all that stuff, and I'm proud of them. I'm proud of all of my kids, and the older two are not musical, but they love their music. Zibby, when I moved out of the big house, I'm living in an apartment now, so you sort of chuck all this stuff away or give it to your kids, and she's got about 300 vinyl albums that I've been towing around. They've just been towing around, and they've gone to a good home, and she and Jed love their music. And look, it's music therapy for all of us, right?
That's right.
I like listening to some stuff, and I like playing some stuff. It's musical therapy.
Hey, let's have a little bit of that musical therapy right now. The old 55 hit, Looking for an Echo. And speak more to Wilbur Wilde on the other side.
We were looking for an echo, an answer to our sound.
Oh, beautiful song, Looking for an Echo. Everybody was on the dance floor waving their arms slowly back and forward at the legends of Old 55, Frankie J. Holden, and of course Wilbur Wilde at our Bridgeway Hotel out at Paraka recently.
What do you listen to, Wilbur, when you're in your car? What do you like to listen to?
It's funny. Look, my girlfriend and I the other night sat down, and she had seen a thing on YouTube. It was like about Mushroom Records and Michael Gudinski, and she said that I'd popped up in it. It was like a doco on Michael, right? And I said, look, I'd forgotten all about it, but I did an interview. It was 30 years ago. Just gave my impressions of why Mushroom Records, such a great independent Australian label and promoting Australian music, and, bunged on for a little bit. And then off the back of that, as with YouTube, it sort of linked us to a couple of different things. And Cherry loves her gigs too. We met at a Seekers concert of all things. My girlfriend and I, she's a palliative care nurse, and one of her clients, a dementia patient, loves the Seekers. He's still with us. It was a couple of years ago now, right? But he's still around and still loves his music and loves the Seekers. And I just happened to go to the Seekers concert because a mate of mine was who wrote the actual show. It was the Seekers story, and also plays and sings with the Seekers, Michael Cristiano. And I said, "Oh, that's my seat next to you." And she said, "Oh, isn't this your lucky day?" And I'm like, "What?" I was at the recital hall, a Seekers matinee. You can imagine what the audience was like. It was the blue rinse set plus swarms of Zimmer frames, and here I score a girlfriend out of it.
It was your lucky day.
It was my lucky day. We got talking, and halfway through I said, "Do you know these songs?" And she said, "No, but the 89-year-old guy next to me does." I said, "Oh, is that your dad?" She said, "No, I'm a palliative care nurse, and he's one of my clients." And I said, "Well, you must be a really kind person," and she is. Yeah. And we just sort of hit it off. So anyway, Cherry and I are sitting there after the Gudinski thing, and we started watching footage from the Classic Countdown tour we did in 2006. It was great. We listened to Sherbet and we listened to Hush, and I remember, we did about 14 of them, sold out in every city. It was lovely memories for me too. In the second half of that show, like Hush closed the first half and just blew the lid off the dump, and opening the second half of the show, just wearing his jumper and playing acoustic guitar, James Rain comes out by himself. You can hear a pin drop. It's like we're in Rod Laver Arena and there's 12,000 people there, and he sings Reckless. So it was sort of like we just had this gig for ourselves at home. It was just mighty. So when you ask me what I listen to, look, I listen to some jazz and stuff. And if I'm learning tunes or whatever for a gig, I just love that live performance. I thrive on live performance myself, but also as a punter, if you will, it's just great. I don't think we got around to watching Frankie J. Holden and Wilbur Wilde. We watched Renee Gayer, Joey Camilleri. I played with Joe on that concert thing, and it was a bloody good tour.
I've got a 4 CD set of Countdown. It's one of my favourite things to play.
Yeah.
Takes you right down memory lane, back to the days when music was just everything then.
It's a huge part of our lives. I mentioned this dementia patient of Cherry's, right? He came over for lunch the other day, and this was something that Cherry wanted for her birthday, which was back in March, her birthday. But we finally got it together where I put a GoPro in the passenger side of her car, and Des sat in his usual seat in the passenger side. I haven't edited it up yet, but I sat in the back with a handy cam, but I've seen some of the footage and it just comes out great. And what we did, I live in a leafy suburb of Ivanhoe, and we just drove slowly around the streets of Ivanhoe, and I printed up the lyrics to I'll Never Find Another You by the Seekers. And Cherry, she got it on a Spotify in the car, and Des and Cherry sang along. The relationship they've developed over the last 3 years with her next level care, you get to the bit, I'll never find another you. Aww. And he'd look at her. He just loves her.
Right?
He loves him too, and he sort of understands that she's got a boyfriend, but it makes him sad, And that's what we did. A musical memory, I bung on about this all the time, is so deeply embedded. It evokes memories of love and of happiness and of sadness and of great times and exhilaration and triumph and adversity. And it's just the soundtrack to our emotional lives.
Absolutely. And I found that at the Bridgeway the other night. I don't know how long it's been since we've heard some of those fabulous songs that you sang, but everybody knew every word. And we were singing along with you, every chorus, every verse. Where does that come from?
Well, that's right. Des needed the lyrics printed up because he gets a little bit nervous. He doesn't think he sings well, but he does. He sings along, and a lot of people do that. We all sing in kinder and in prep, and then when we get in older age, I can't sing, I'm tone deaf. It's such a big part right from the get-go. When we're being carried around in our mum's tummies, we're still listening to stuff then. Melody and harmony, and it took me a while to discover that. It took me a while for things to click, and then when they do, you just think, I still play jazz tunes that I've played 10,000 times, and I'll just work through the changes, whether it's Bye Bye Blackbird or Autumn Leaves. And I think, so it goes there, it can go there, and it's constant exploration. And of course, in live performance, the same, Frank Holden, we just go different places. I mean, we've got some great tunes to go there with. It was great on Saturday night at the Bridgeway when they're all singing along with Freddie in All My Friends Are Getting Married, Of course, everyone's going to sing along.
And we're all waving our arms like
all
this.
Waving, yeah, countdown style, hands in the air.
Yeah, that's right. It was fabulous. Cherry sounds like an amazing lady. I take my hat off to people like Cherry who do such a difficult job, and it sounds like she does it with all her heart.
Well, she does. She says to me, there's some confronting things that happen. I mean, she's looking after a couple of motor neuron disease sufferers. That can be really confronting. She says, I'll just put my big girl panties on and deal with it.
Sounds like I would love her.
Let's play a little song now for Des and Sherry, the Seekers. And this is their beautiful version of the Beatles song, Yesterday.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away.
That was a special version of the Beatles song Yesterday, sung by the Seekers, especially for Wilbur's girlfriend Sherry and her beautiful patient Des.
When I was doing my research, I found something that I didn't know. You toured with the Rocky Horror Show for quite a long time, over 750 performances. Wow.
Yeah, we opened in 1992 in July at the Comedy Theatre in Melbourne. The cast was fantastic. We were blessed to have a great cast who all got along. Frankenfurter was Craig McLachlan. Janet was Gina Riley. Brad was Glenn Butcher, who's still acting in, I'll tell you, I saw Glenn Butcher acting recently in Kitty Flanagan's Fisk on ABC. Peter Rosethorn was Riff Raff. Lyndon Nagel was Magenta. And Red was the narrator. I was Eddie and Dr. Scott, the traditional dual role. So we did about 16 weeks in Melbourne, 8 weeks in Adelaide, went to Sydney, opened on New Year's Eve 1992 and played there for about 13 weeks. Then we eventually went up to Singapore to do a couple of weeks up there, which was kind of interesting too, Then in the intervening years, we did Perth, went back to Brisbane, and then in 1998, we started rehearsal in Sydney at Star City for about a month of rehearsal and then ran through till just before Christmas. That was the last shows that cast did. Yeah, McLachlan was there, but he went over to London to do Grease, and Marcus Graham took over from him, did Adelaide. Marcus was fantastic. Tim Ferguson came into the show in Sydney in 1998 as Frankenfurter. And in Perth, we had a recently returned from the UK, Jason Donovan, which was just hilarious because up until then, I was the worst. Worst behaved.
Oh, worst behaved.
I was worst behaved. But Jason was fantastic. He's just such a good actor and such a spirited and improvisational, like he was just fantastic. It was my pleasure to serve alongside all of those people. Ali Fowler from the Shantuzis joined us in Sydney. In fact, Kamal was filling in for Red in Sydney as well. We'd go down for the TV show and then Red would stay home with his family. I'd come back for the Sunday show and do the show with Kamal as the narrator. So, yeah, it was fun.
Let's have a little bit of Rocky Horror, shall we? Here's the Time Warp.
I love that show. We've got a really old theatre here, and every Friday the 13th, they play the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it starts at midnight. We all dress up in our fishnet stockings and throw toast and rice and water pistols, the whole thing.
Look, I actually was the envy of the cast because in fishnets and a pair of size 15 stilettos, I've got a pretty sharp pair of gams.
Oh, thanks again. Have a great day.
And say hi to Sherry.
Okay, shall do. See you, Cheryl.
Ta-da.
You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick, and I can't help myself. Let's go out with one more old 55 song. Come on, let's do it. This is actually from the glory days of Aussie Pub Rock Volume 2.
Let's do it. Now we get on. Let's do it. Let's do it.
You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick. Thank you so much for joining me on the Still Rocking It podcast. Hope to catch you again next time. Get out when you can, support Aussie music, and I'll see you down the front.